Hey, aloha kako. My name is Ben Guerrero. I'm the Student Success Coordinator here at Maui College. And one of my job duties includes being the Title III Project Director. The intent of our grant is to increase the capacity of Maui College to better serve Native Hawaiian and all students. In recent years, through work with our student cohorts, we focused on changing our relationship with our students to recognize that many need assistance but have difficulty asking for help. We try in our orientation to share our stories to show our students that we have at one time or another have needed help to survive. Then we ask our students to share their stories and what they need to navigate their college journeys. And then we focus on getting the students the help that they need, and then help to empower them by helping them to not only understand the available services, but to take full advantage of the help that's available in the community. Through my college years, I was single, then I was married, then I was a parent twice. And fortunately for me, my wife knew how to access assistance like food stamps and free school supplies for our kids. I felt that as a taxpayer, I donated my taxes for these kinds of programs and should use them when I needed them. Our awareness and our ability to learn how to access resources helped both my wife and I to graduate from college. This panel is an opportunity to change our relationship with our students, to find out what they need most to succeed, and then to do our best to provide them the information that they need to relieve their stress and provide them the basic needs that they must have in order to stay in school and change the trajectory of their lives. Is poverty simply a matter of low income? And this is an important issue to discuss and contemplate as we begin our exploration of poverty. There are those who argue that poverty comprises more than just income. For example, the Nobel Prize-winning economist Amartya Sen argues that poverty translates into a lack of freedom. In other words, those in poverty are severely confined in terms of the things they can do and accomplish in their lives. In European countries, poverty is routinely referred to as social exclusion or social deprivation. This gets at the idea that those in poverty are often socially and politically disenfranchised. Alika Guerrero, my son, who's working on his master's thesis in Hawaiian Studies and Language, shared this when I asked him for Hawaiian words to describe poverty. He said, "We have words for poverty in Hawaiian, pakaneo, ilihune, and ilikole, in order from least severe to very severe poverty." But he thought that a better word to incorporate would be something like obstacle, ʻaʻalena. We also have poetic ways of referencing these challenges in the form of pu'u, hills, or pali, cliffs. And he said that it would give the impression that these situations can be overcome. We have several panelists today to share their experience in this area with us. We have Lori Tsuhako. She's the director for the Department of Housing and Human Concerns. You can give a wave. We have Thelma, Akita-Kealoha from Hawaiian Catholic Charities. And we also have students, Shannon E., who's a student with our Maui program, our former student. She's now our student assistant, and she's here with us, so thank you. Is Heidi here? Okay. And we have Sherry Kupau. You could give a wave. She's one of our graduates, and they'll tell their stories eventually. And then we have Prelaine Manuel, culinary student. And we also have our professional development coordinator, Joyce Yamada. She'll be keeping an eye on the chat for any comments or questions that you folks have. Now, Leni English and I were talking story about this panel, and she shared this manaʻo. She said the challenge is poverty is a common Western manaʻo. The presence of poverty was not ordinary, perhaps in situations of war, famine, and epidemics. However, the ʻohana/village system usually provided an abundance, minimizing the predominance of that concept. Pueo Pata offered, Nohona, ilihune a nele, ilihune suggesting the poor and nele referring to lack of. How wonderful it would be if the ʻohana/village provided in abundance. Perhaps in the making as we navigate the needs pronounced by this pandemic at all levels of our community. So with these words, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Leni English, who is our HINET coordinator at UHMC and recently retired from Liu'ukalani Trust, which is a private operating foundation founded in 1909 for the benefit of orphan and destitute children with preference given to Native Hawaiian children. So welcome to all of you. Thank you for coming, and I'll turn it over to Leni.
Okay, everybody give a big hand to Ben, 2 hands. And to all of you for being here, thank you so much. I'm gonna try to keep myself under wrap because I would like to say that although it might appear that I am very passionate about things like this, it comes from a really deep place. And it comes from I have learned that it comes from, I think I was born with this issue of being very sensitive to oppression. And so it's like super deep. And, you know, we hear about things like this being transmitted via DNA. I believe that because I was not raised like that. I mean, I was raised in a home that apparently would have been defined as being poverty stricken. But I wasn't, that nobody told me that. And we hear that often. We hear that about people who had puka out of educational institutions saying that apparently people would have defined us as being in poverty. And so, yeah, I do have issue with the word poverty. That's my issue. I understand that it's a real thing for people. I understand that there's purpose for that. I understand, and thank you, Ben, for doing such a good job in defining that whole big manaʻo around poverty, that it's beyond just having food every day. This is not new. Our educational system knew about it long time ago, which is the foundation of free school lunch, you know, all those programs. We're making sure people cannot think, they cannot be successful. Our kids can't be successful in school if they're not eating. And so the same is true at the higher educational institutions. So I'm super thankful and excited that the university and this higher institution has recognized the importance of seeking, if we want for our students to be successful, then we gotta be sure all the barriers are eliminated or mitigated, or that we have those supports. So enough with that. Thanks again. I'm going to start with our community resource experts. And so thankful. These are very familiar people to me. I've had the great honor in my tenure working with Laurie and Thelma. We crossed paths. Actually, Laurie and I was walking the same path at one time when we worked for Liu'ukalani Trust. And so with that, please feel free to chat any questions, comments that you might have. Joyce, thanks for checking that out and watching it. But I will start by posing this to our community folks. So as a policy decision administrator, what data, research experience that you folks have seen in all of your hundreds of years of experience in working with our community drives how services becomes available. Because I know you guys just don't like pick it out of a pocket and go, okay, we're going to do this. And then tell us about what those services are. But you can tell us who you are and what you do first.
Thelma, you want to go first? You go first.
Shucks. Okay. Actually, I have been, well, I'm ashamed to say how long I've been in nonprofit because it'll show my age, but I've been in many different nonprofits working in different areas. And just this last position with Catholic Charities Hawaii, and I take that back, and also with Maui Economic Opportunity, I have the opportunity to work with the community in this area. I worked with Kahikili Terrace. I worked with the resident, getting the residents in the resident patrol, with the police department, rallying support for substance abuse prevention. So, oh yeah, and I work for Catholic Charities Hawaii. Sorry, I'm Thelma Akita-Kealoha. I've been around for a while, but just in my last two positions, I've been working more directly with people and more directly with people who are affected by poverty. I don't have a lot of data and research to share just because I do some, a lot of direct services and I've done less grant writing and less reporting to folks and stuff, that I don't really remember a lot of those numbers and I can't crunch them. Probably Lori is way better at that than me. I believe that services are driven, kind of like the greasy wheel gets the oil. So whatever is being brought up at the time, like these days I work a lot with homelessness and affordable housing. So of course, people are always talking about, there's homeless encampments and things like that. So I believe that a lot of services are driven by the issues that are coming up with the community and people who are advocating for them. And I forgot my train of thought. I wanted to say that Maui County, we have a lot to be proud of Maui County because notorious, over and over and over again, the nonprofits are often funded by Maui County. I believe we have we're the only county that provides nonprofits funding to do the work they need to do. And that is driven by the people who are working for the county, like Lori and the past directors of human concerns, because most of them had a pulse on the community and they knew what was going on and they knew the value of the services that are being provided. Of course, there's only so much money and we can't do everything. And the one thing that I feel like people can do is they can become involved. The community kind of they've gotten better, but in the past they were very lackadaisical. They would always only complain. They would never get involved. And really, these problems are community problems. They're not isolated problems, and everybody needs to get involved. So, people need to jump in. And and I'm always advocating for that. Also, when legislature comes on, there's always issues that affect our community. If people get more involved with these issues, then we can get more things done. Anyway, I don't know if that made any sense, but
that made a lot of sense, Thelma. Thank you so much. And couple big takeaways that I hear you speak to is the importance of everybody getting involved. And so that everyone is here, that you have experience and you can contribute. It's like I said, super awesome that there's a place for all of us to be involved. And it's wonderful that the college is looking for convening people to work on this together. So that was very maikaʻi Thelma. And our director of human housing and human services with lots of experience and at the helm of our community leading the way. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Leni. So for all you young guys, Leni just that was code language for I'm an old dog and I've been around a long time. So thank you for having me here. My name is Lori Tsuhako, and just want to start out by telling you that I'm a social worker by training, as is Leni, and I think social work principles really guide a lot of what I do and how I do them. And I hope that, I'm sure that the education that you guys are getting at UH Maui will do the same for you as you continue your careers. And I look forward to having all of you, no matter what your area of expertise will be, to join the workforce and stay in the workforce, because we certainly need help in all different areas. So, poverty is a really interesting concept. I found myself nodding when Leni was talking about how when I grew up, I never knew that my family never had money. It was never anything that I worried about. It wasn't anything that anybody said to me, but my parents worked really hard. I knew that we had more than some people did, and we didn't have as much as other people did, but it never really was, it never really occurred to me that we weren't gonna have dinner that night or anything. So I think maybe a lot of us who are in our generation who were born in the 1960s and who grew up at that time didn't really feel, maybe we were shielded from that. I think many generations who've come after us have had a different experience of poverty. And today we have many examples of generational poverty, where people do actually struggle with food insecurity and housing insecurity and all those things that come with not being able to sustain a quality of life in our community. So, when I was a young child, Lyndon Johnson was the president, and we had this thing called the War on Poverty. So any of you who are particularly history buffs can go back and read what the War on Poverty was. It coincided with civil rights legislation and attempts to really look at communities, especially those of color, who are marginalized and who kind of faced institutional racism. And I think we're seeing some of that issue play out right in front of us in the current life, right? So we don't need to go into all of that, but I do want to answer Leni's question in real particulars. Many of you may not know what the ALICE report is. It was convened by, I think, the United Way. ALICE is an acronym for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. And so they did a large scale study in Hawaii, collected data about people who are working, but who are still having a lot of challenges because their income isn't enough to maintain a really stable household, right? And so these might be individuals, it might be families and households. Some of us may be included in that ALICE category or have been in the past, right? So that provided a really good picture for us at the county. Additionally, there's different advocacy and policy groups that meet around the state that deal with certain subpopulations. So I'll give you a good example. So within our Department of Housing and Human Concerns, we have an early childhood resource center where families who have young children between birth and school age can go for resources on child development, can go for some help on childcare subsidies, that kind of thing. And that group of professionals who work in the field of early education have done a deeper dive into the data about how economics help to paint a picture of what the needs for childcare are in our community. So let me just give you an example of some of the deep dive data that they have. So, we have data about how many households live under the federal poverty guidelines. It's about 23% of the people who live under there are single parents with children under 5 years old. In Maui County, for example, young children in poverty are concentrated on Molokai and Lanai. So the ALICE report gave us this data. They estimate that an income of, okay, listen to this now, income of $78,600 is needed for families to live in Maui. $78,600. So if you imagine that you're working, and I'm not picking on fast food, but imagine that you're working at McDonald's or at Burger King, you work full time. Even if you have 2 adults working in your household, you're not going to make $78,600. I know that for sure. Okay. So there's plenty of county employees who have good benefits and who have reasonable pay. As a single parent, are not going to earn $76,600, $78,600. So that just shows you, right, some price points about how challenging it is to have secure housing, to have food security, to be able to pay for costs around childcare. So when the department looks at creating programs that address the needs of people who may be impoverished, we look at the data like the ALICE report, and we look at other things too. Like much like Thelma described, we listen to the community, we listen for what's needed, and we try to create and develop programs that sort of address needs, but not it's not like throwing a whole bunch of darts at the board and just kind of seeing where they last. The position that I'm in right now is an appointed position. So if you can imagine, the mayor could get tired of looking at me in the next month and say, I want a new director. And then there's new direction, right, in the department. So part of what each director who steps into this and other directorships across the county has to look on is, how do we start planning a little bit more long range than the year by year that we're given in an appointed position? I'll give you a good example of that and then I'll close. So 12 years ago, when I was in this position working for Mayor Tavares, was at the height of the really huge recession when President Obama came into office. And we knew that the county revenues for taxes were going to go way down. We knew that we wouldn't be able to provide as much money to the nonprofit community as we had historically over the years. And so one of the things that we did to plan forward, which would go beyond the life of that administration, was, well, how much revenue can the department generate? So we never were grant writers before, but we turned into grant writers, and we turned into collaborators, and we turned into connectors so that we could take advantage of any federal funds or any foundational funds that were out there that could connect to either nonprofits or to the county departments themselves to help make us more sustainable in the long term. Okay, so I'll give you an example. We set our goal, I thought it was pretty ambitious. We set a goal of $1 million that first year. Instead, what we did was we generated 4 million, right? So some of this money came from, let me give you an example, the United States Department of Agriculture. So we found out that nonprofits, when they start working on building a new office or building a new clinic or something like that, they weren't really good at all the small little pieces that you needed to do in order to actually do a capital project. They don't have engineers working for them. They don't have project coordinators working for them. So we got this grant from the USDA to provide those resources for them to consult with the agency so that they can push through their capital improvement projects more efficiently. They didn't have to pay an outside engineer to get this work done. And they could still meet timeliness so that they could use federal funds to help with their campaign. So it didn't work out perfectly. Honestly, it didn't work out perfectly, but it gave us the sense that the county could be that convener of resources, right? We could provide that assistance. We could make these projects go faster, waste less money, right? Because if you don't use government money within a certain timeline, it lapses and it goes away and you got to wait for the next guy. So those are some of the things we look at when we're looking at how do we address community needs given the economic condition that we face. Thank you. Thanks, Leni.
Considering the large volume of Ike, thank you so much, Laurie, for giving us that view. Couple of things that I heard that is so applicable to all of us is collaboration. What we're trying to do requires all of us to do it together. She also talked about the DART, better to kind of work on one thing going forward as opposed to everybody doing small parts. But I really do know that there's a lot going on that is available to that is made available from the county, and appreciate your leadership in making things happen. So I would like to move on to the other experts, the life experts that are on our panel. And mahalo their kumu, Celine, for identifying them, for nurturing them to the place that they're at, where they can be contributors. I think one of the things we got a mindset we need to, and I think our chancellor, of whom I come from the same loins, spoke to in his Earth Day report is the hulihia. It's like changing this mindset, and it has to be with a mindset of a mindset of capacity. And I somehow believe that that's what might be part of your stories, because everything we do going to have challenges and barriers, whether it's wake up in the morning, make our coffee, drive to, and then when we aspire into higher education, the barriers are like multiple and many. And so how we navigate through those is what I'm hoping we can learn from the next experts that will come forward. And so I'd love it if you could introduce yourself very briefly, tell us where you at in terms of your educational journey. I know you come from different places at this point. And then identify one challenge or one barrier or that was related to basic need, and then what resource support helped you get through it. So I'm wondering and then I want to try to be attentive to everyone having a time. We're at the half hour, but we have made some time available for questions following the panel. So who would like to start? I can volunteer Sherry because you're the first person in the box.
Hi, yeah, I can go first. Can you hear me clearly?
Mai ka'i.
Okay. So I'm Sherry Kapau, currently working on my master's degree. So I'll be graduating in a year. It was a hard road, but took a lot of determination and a lot of help. Starting out, I think in my education, moʻaʻe was a really big help for me. When I started out at UHMC, they worked alongside me to help me through my first year. I entered into the education later, in my 30s. I had 7 children at the time. So, I was a homemaker. My husband was a breadwinner. So basically, I took advantage of every counseling and every tutoring that I could. I didn't have to, but I wanted to because I wanted to be successful. And I had great teachers that really helped me through it as well. So today I'm in my master's. I'm surprised myself. But one of the challenges I think I experienced in the beginning and with the pandemic was rental assistance. When I first started out my education, we were losing the place we were in because the landlord was going to be selling. And I had 7 kids, me and my husband, who was going to take all of us 9. So it was a challenge. But I reached out to Catholic Charities and they helped me. I took their budget class, also set some goals, which was really good. Long story short, a couple years down the line, I became a homeowner through the materials that Catholic Charities was able to help me through. So I'm a homeowner now. And I'm grateful for the help. Currently, I am working in an agency, a nonprofit agency that works really closely with Lori and Thelma. I work at Family Life Center. So I get to help other people, with housing and be able to understand, the challenges from where they come from. And, with the pandemic that happened, it was really tough because my husband's still, the major breadwinner, but his checks got cut completely in half when the pandemic happened. So I could say now I was really prideful to reach out for help because I'm like, how can I be helping people in this situation and asking for help for myself? I had to kind of step down and somebody told me, don't be too prideful to accept the help when it's there, so I was able to get a lot of help, as far as rent, as far as for mortgage and for food. So, it was Catholic Charities again who, reached out and helped. So, yeah, I had to not be prideful and reach out for the help. And I think the journey with education is the same, is that you can't be prideful. You have to reach out if there's an opportunity, for scholarships, for FAFSA, for things like that. Ask for help and reach out for help. Thank you.
Wow, everybody. What a story. Thank you so much. That was fully loaded too. Humility to ask, to know, to reach. I'm very thankful that this is being recorded and will be available to instructors on our campus, because what you share is important to the greater community. Thank you so much. What a role model for your 7 children and other people you're connected to. Okay, who? Shannon. Uh-oh,
Hello, everyone.
there you are.
Hi. So I'm Shannon EE. I am currently a student working on my bachelor's in social work. I graduated from UHMC College, obviously, in human services and liberal arts. And I was a manaʻo student, and now I currently work for manaʻo. So I experienced poverty all throughout my life, and I knew it. I knew that, like, when my friends went to the movies and they had money and I didn't, or my mom would like say like, oh, let me pack you some food and you take that in or whatever, like that I knew at that time. And then growing up, I remember like always being with my grandparents because my parents were always working. So they needed to work in order to provide for us. And so college definitely wasn't part of the picture. It was like, you need to work to provide for your family because that's what mattered. And so I think like over the time when I first started college, I was a single parent, and it was really tough. But I knew I had to do something because it was like the never ending, like I was working paycheck to paycheck. Sometimes like I didn't even make it paycheck to paycheck. And it was like trying to figure out, okay, what bill am I going to pay? What bill, can wait maybe a month or so. And I was definitely, and I still am honestly right now, on benefits, like state benefits such as food stamps. And I think I don't think I would be able to honestly buy food with the job that I have right now, just as a part-time and a student. I don't think I would be able to do that on my own without those benefits. And then I also had TANF, or what is it called? Like the money, right? I think it's called TANF. I had money, but because I was on it for so long, you have a limit, right? There's a 5-year limit, and I was on it for that amount of time. But I really am grateful, like, for all the resources, like, somebody shared earlier, like not to be prideful or whatever. Like I wasn't shamed because I knew I needed the help. Like if there's the help, like let me take the help because that's what I need, to support my family and stuff. My kids always got reduced, free lunch or whatever it was. During the pandemic was like one of the biggest like struggles. So like I lived in a little studio with my kids. So it was like my son would have to put his bed down at night. So his bed was on the side, and then my daughter slept in another bed. And then, me and my other half slept on one bed, and it was all in the same room. And then in the morning we would get up, and it was school, and everybody had to make sure they had their headphones because everybody's home, distant learning here, there, and everywhere. So it really was a struggle during the pandemic. And then that was at my parents' house, and my mom got laid off. So unfortunately, because of that, they had to rent out that studio. They had to choose between, figuring out, okay, I can't, unfortunately, you can't stay here because I need to rent this out so that I can make money to pay my mortgage. So that was really tough. Luckily, I have family who supported me, and so I was able to go stay with my auntie, and it was still in a little studio as well. You know, it's the struggle. And you know, I've been on HUD and like I was on the wait list and then gotten a voucher, and then I couldn't find a place that, you know, in that small amount of time. You know, they give you a 2-week span or whatever, like, oh, you have this amount of time to look for a place, and I couldn't find a place that accepted. So it was just like here, there, and everywhere. But right now I am in my own home. Habitat for Humanity was one of those resources that helped me. So I was able to do you know, sweat equity hours, and then now I live in my own home. My kids have their own room. I have my own space. But I think most importantly, Mu'oa'e was really one of the biggest supporters in my life. I mean, I cannot even stress how important it was to have that. I think it was the community, right? That like believing that it's possible because they said it was, you know, they helped me to with resources, they helped me believe in myself. It wasn't just like, I wasn't just a number at the school, right? I was like, you're this amazing woman, like you can do this, you can do that. And I was able to connect with my culture. So I think that made me like believe in myself more, get connected. Moai also helped me to there was this Hawaii Community Assets that like came in and like taught us about like budgeting, like credit, like all that stuff. Because when I was a kid, I didn't learn about that stuff because my parents were just surviving. So I think that was really important to be taught stuff like that, to just learn the basic stuff, you know. Yeah, I think there's so much. And then I went like when my first year in college, like my daughter got really sick, and we were in the hospital for like a month and a half. And you know, she had lupus, she was on dialysis. So like I was on MedQuest, but there were some things that like were not paid for. It was like outside of, you know, what was available. So it was really tough. So like Hugs was one of those nonprofits, like helped you know, with stuff that we needed. Like there are so many resources that like I really latched onto. But yeah, I'm really grateful for Mu'oa'e that helped me like let me know about the resources, right? It was like about like Coconut Wireless, like sharing like, okay, like there's this available to you, like you can reach out and go this or that. I was also a recipient of Bridge to Hope, which is like a program that works, you know, with welfare and then as a student. So I'm able to work at the college and, you know, get paid that part-time, but I definitely don't make close to 70 something thousand. But, you know, I'm definitely in a place today where I wasn't before. Like, I don't worry about like paycheck to paycheck, you know, I'm no longer single. Like I have a support, you know, system. My other half is, also works at the college. And, so it helps to get like 2 people to have that income, because just one income like definitely wasn't enough. So, and then of course scholarships, I was able to, you know, apply for scholarships, Hawaii Community Foundation, UH Foundation. I wouldn't be able to finish college if not for those scholarships. There would be no way at all. And it helped with, you know, my instructors, you know, writing letters of recommendations, like that type of thing. So I definitely am grateful for education for sure, but it wouldn't be possible definitely without that program that I was in.
Sweet. You two covered a lot of ground. One of the themes that I hear consistently is being resourceful. Well, first, that the resource is available, and I'm so glad we have the county administrator, and I thought I saw another administrator. I mean, we have people in decision-making capacity who can hear what your experiences have been. So it's one thing for the resource to be available. It's another to go and access it. But more so is access it and make good with it. Because like TANF, They can't be holding you up for 5 years. Beyond 5 years, there's an expectation. I think that holds true for higher education. I mean, we all know about that saying, what is that? Give a person a fish, he'll eat for the day. Feed him to fish and he'll, fish for the lifetime. And so these are fishing instructions that is made available, but then you guys are taking it. So we gotta figure out how to get our students to take it and then make good with it. And then the other thing I heard was sacrifice. And I was gonna ask our administrators to speak to it. And Praline, I promise we'll make sure you have time. Oh, you like?
Okay, no worries.
Just one really quick comment, Leni, about the personal stories we heard from Sherry and from Shannon. Is that, systemically, one of the ways that we strengthen people in our community is through education. Education is one way that that everybody in the community, if we're better educated, we participate more, we have higher income, right? In general, we provide a service to the community. We feel more a part of the community. And so education, what you guys are doing, what you guys have shown is that pursuit of that education.
Right.
And luckily for the rest of us is that you're putting that education to good use. Makes our community stronger, but it also it lifts you up. And it's not just lifting you guys up, but it's look at what you're doing for your children. Look at what you're doing for your children, right? Your children watch this. They watch your experience. They watch how you've handled it. They are learning from you, right? So there's one more generation of kids there who, there'll be challenges in their life, right? As they grow up, there'll be different challenges, more challenges, all kinds of stuff. But you guys are the living example to them, right? Education is important. And it doesn't need to be necessarily college, I gotta go get my PhD. It could be trade school. It could be something that is more meaningful to them, but that education piece of having that and being able to utilize that to get into a job that matches what your passion is and that can pay you a living wage. All that stuff is like incredibly important, not just for you and your family, but all of the rest of us as a community. So good for you guys.
For sure. Thank you. Praline. Praline.
Hi. It's Prilay. Okay. I'm from Micronesia. I started 2 years college in College of Micronesia, and I studied in ELT. So I graduated. After that, I decided to go to Hawaii to further my education. But when I arrived in Hawaii, I started working in the hospitality industry, and I kind of find interest in it. So I decided to change my major to hospitality. And I'm not a culinary student. I'm an hospitality student, but I have Mike as an instructor. So yeah, I decided to change my major to hospitality and tourism. So now this is my last semester. I will be graduating, I think next month maybe, or in June. I don't have much experience in my career, but I would say I'm from a poor country, and like what the others mentioned, my parents struggle to work to earn a living for all of us. Like I have 5 brothers and they're helping out too, and I'm the only daughter, so that's why I decided to come out here. So during the pandemic, the reason why I moved to the mainland is because our landlord want to renovate the house where we were living in, so we don't have much money at that time to find another place to stay. So we just decided to move to the mainland to stay with our relatives out here, so that we can find a job, since almost all the jobs in Maui are closed down. We're closed down, so yeah, we struggled to earn money to live, but thankfully we get by. Yeah, there's nothing much to say.
That was a lot, really. I'm sorry. I really want to try to say that properly. Prelan.
We pronounce it Prelan because we roll the R, but everybody here, in Maui, they call me Prelane.
Prelan.
Prelane.
Okay.
Without rolling the R.
I love the sound of it deserves to have it, but I need to work on it. So I apologize.
No
what
worries.
what you talk about, Prelan, is in the face of barriers, you keep going. You sidestep it and you find other ways to go, which was something that was shared by everybody else. And seeing people's successes about that, it's like, okay, here's a barrier. Let's figure out how to get around it. No doubt, COVID did a number on the whole wide world, people's personal world, people's professional world, everything got hooly. That was the biggest barrier. And then we all had to figure out and shift. So you speak to something that was shared by everybody else, and something that I think as an institution, we want to try to support institution and community. How do we support?
Yeah, it's like.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go on.
No.
So it's very challenging because where I came from, we don't need that much money to survive because we don't pay for rent, we don't pay for any bills. We only pay for electricity and grocery like that because we own the land, we own our own houses. So compared to the US, it's really hard and challenging. Money is everything. We have to have money in order to buy everything here. But back home, it's easy.
Right.
We can plant, we have everything there.
Right.
So it's very challenging.
Right. Talk about yes. But you're a great example of, even in those barriers, I mean, we're talking deep yours. It's like you got to change the way you think too. Everything that you normally would be doing is not the way Americans do it. But you keep going. So that's what we want to see for students, is like, just keep going.
Without giving up.
Yes, yes. So I just want to be sure I didn't miss any other students. Ben?
No, you got everybody.
Okay, great. And we have time. So like I told Ben, guys, I really wanted to be sure we heard from each of the experts who we can all learn from. And at this time, I really would like to hear from their kumu.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
I wasn't prepared to
Oh, sorry.
participate, but I'm happy to. I've loved having these folks in my classes. I haven't had a chance to have Leni in my classes, but Shannon and Sherry both saw me when I was first starting out as an instructor. So they helped me learn too. And I come from a similar background. I don't have kids, so I haven't had the struggles that they've had, but I was a free lunch kid and a scholarship kid, and yeah, spent some nights crying in the library, but didn't give up. And I've shared some of those stories here and there with students, but yeah, you've only got two options, right? Give up or keep going. So you keep going and you find those resources and figure it out, piece it all together. So I admire my students for all of their resilience and the fact that they have kept going. So kudos, you guys. And just know that some of us out here will write you letters of recommendation till the cows come home, like my grandpa used to say, because I benefited from scholarships and I'm paying it back and paying it forward.
Excellent. And we expect nothing less from all of you either, for real kind. That's part of resourcing. You can feel really good about receiving resources, knowing that you can pay it back or pay it forward. To be able to give back is no greater thing. I mean, it just kind of, I always tell my kids when they get blessed, it's never a blessing until you bless it. That's the full extent of blessing. So that's just my personal thing, and I'll preach that till I die. I would like to give some time to our mu'o people. To share.
Are you talking about me or them? I can talk as an administrator for Hawaii. Yeah, I was kind of thinking about that, leading up to this panel. And I remember when I first came, in fact, Louis was the director for the Title III program at the time. And then I came in, and program was very different back then. I think the program, because it was set aside money, for Alaskans and for Hawaiians, it was almost like the grant was sort of set up in a certain way where the community, just like you would benefit from like food stamps or things like that, the college program was set up that way too. And it took me years, to kind of figure out, because we used to give tuition assistance up front. And then we found out that because it didn't have a lot of value to it, students would just leave and think, well, it didn't cost me anything, so I'm out. And then as the years went on, I learned a little bit more, and that's why I mentioned about empowerment. And I think that's why we tried to support the students, but also empower them, so that they could kind of see that even as just a one person of millions, you can still impact your life significantly. And then I started using the money for different reasons. So one of the examples is, for many years, we just ran the program, support services, kind of like a regular thing. And then I decided to put a leadership component into it. And it was asking freshmen to do some serious research. Shannon was the first group, that did the research, and to ask a true freshman to do real research, to explore what the barriers are for students. It was basically a barrier study that I learned about from South Texas College. And I'd raised the bar that high because that had never been asked of me. I'd never even heard of true freshmen doing work at that level. But I just said, you know what, let's go, let's go. And let's get faculty and staff involved to talk about what is leadership, what is Native Hawaiian leadership. And then, using sort of that leadership to lead the research, right? To find out what is happening that is stopping our students, from succeeding. Because we would see half of our students disappear every semester, and it seemed to be okay. It was acceptable. And I thought, we're guilty of building this giant group of people out in the community who started on their dream and never finished it. And I thought, that's not acceptable. And so it was kind of like a radical turn where the grant was used just to sort of help people to be dependent on grant funds, on federal funds. And then it turned to, wait a minute, we need to empower them. We need to make sure that they understand that they can have a huge impact on the community. And we just did an evaluation, a 5-year evaluation. And we got some of the most positive comments from students who didn't complete our program. And maybe were with us for only 1 or 2 semesters, but that empowerment helped them to go into their communities, their Hawaiian communities, into their churches and take leadership roles. And it's changed their whole mindset about what they can do as individuals and as a group. And that's kind of what we're continuing to do. So it's kind of funny because in a way, it seemed like the money was meant to be something to keep people dependent on the money. And yet I just said, wait, this can't be right. Let's use this for something else, And now we're seeing that full sort of, we flipped the script, so to speak, and students are leaving, whether they stay with us for a long time or not. Just like Shannon, just like Sherry, they've been through the program and they have changed the trajectory of their lives. I mean, and as an educator, it doesn't get any better than that, to know that you are part of something to help somebody have a better life. And so that is sort of like the underlying thing. And it's why we do the work we do. And I'm so happy that the university, the last few years, where before they would say, hey, wait a minute, poverty, come on, food insecurity, that's a social problem. We don't deal with that, we're educators. But I think they finally kind of come full circle to take their responsibility to say, yeah, as an educational institution, especially a community college, which has more part-time students than full-time, we have to step in. We have to ask them, what do you need? And then we have to respond to that too. So what this whole thing is about, this whole panel is about, is actually an opportunity to see if we can have faculty kind of think about that, when they deal with every single student. How can I intervene? How can I mitigate? How can I advocate? How can I change that relationship, remove the hierarchy within the classroom and just say, how can I help? You're a human being, I'm a human being, you're a future colleague of mine. Let's just talk to each other and let's say, what do you need? And then you'll hear stories like Shannon's and Sherry's and Prelane's, that they've just overcome because we've helped to build up the person, so they can adapt and they can fight through all the things that we've all fought through too to get to where we are. And so we're reaching out. We're trying to say, let's do this again. Let's put more people involved. We want to restart a lot of our services that were kind of shut down when the campus shut down. So if any of you here are present and you're interested and you want to help us do work with food insecurity, anything related to helping students to meet their needs, then please reach out to us. And Joyce and I have been working on things for a long time, and others too, and we'd love to have you be a part of that.
Thanks, Ben. Wanted to give an opportunity for anybody else who would like to share manaʻo or comment.
Hi, Leni.
Hey, Julie.
Hi, aloha all. I'm Julie Patel here at Maui College. Actually right across from Leni folks at the One Stop. And I just want to say mahalo to the students that have been so inspiring and just great role models for your families, your friends, to know that the MU'O program or the college is really here to support you in your journey, whatever that journey might be like. The other component I just wanted to share is here at the college, I oversee our career center and coordinate internships for students to, you know, explore things that they, or fields of interest that might interest them. And so I think having that connection full circle really helps our students to have an advantage of just different types of services available for them. And I think part of the issue might be that not all students take advantage of all the services because they might only know one component that they're comfortable with. And I think, you know, by more of us sharing or listening to other students' stories about their experiences and connecting them, you know, it's like the coconut wireless, right? If we can do that to help each other. My office has changed a lot, so it's really somewhat down to me, myself, and me. So, but we try our best to help, and we connect people to where they need the help. Or if I cannot help, I'll ask somebody else to help. So the coolest thing is that we are all here to help. So whatever that is, if that word can get out to our community and our students, they'll be in good hands wherever they go. So thank you. That's all.
I wanted to make a comment about the students sharing about how their families really helped them. Like Shen was talking about how her parents took her in into their home, and then when they couldn't do that, then her aunt helped her. And I really talked to the point that, you know, we all have a place in helping each other within our community. Everybody, all employees at the college, as well as, you know, just living on Maui and being part of the place where we are, that we all have a responsibility to just really try to help each other and do what we can for each other. And that's really made a difference, I think, in all the students that were here today, what they talked about. And also with ourselves, you know, we're talking about how, you know, growing up, I think everybody was poor, you know, that I knew, and how we didn't think we were poor because we were just sharing stuff with each other. And so that really makes a big difference. And I think that's what you were talking about, Leni, about how wonderful it would be if, you know, our community provided the abundance, you know, for everyone. And so thank you so much, Leni, as well as, you know, everyone here today.
Any other manaʻo that those in the audience with questions, anybody would like to ask or comments?
I just wanted to throw out, like Lori, how important it is for education to be a part of this. There's a lot of shame, you know, in coming forward and asking for assistance. When I was growing up, that was the biggest thing. You know, you was always shame. And early on in this job, I would always hear people say, "Oh," because they wouldn't come as soon as they needed help. Many times they would be in arrears for months, 4, 5 months, because they were shamed. The other thing is that people go through a lot of stresses. So, you know, the students here are very lucky because they have found people who are willing to assist them. But people in the community, they go through a lot of stress and they cannot think clearly. And so there's a lot of barriers for them to figure out the system. And there's you know, even applying for SNAP is so difficult sometimes. So just treating them kindly and treating them with respect is very important. You know, you guys have this down pat. Knowing what the resources are that's out there. You folks are leading the charge, because I've heard this since I've been in the field, that poverty tends to be generational, and it is oppressive. And this is what you learn, that there is, you know, loss of hope, or that you cannot get ahead. So you guys are proving that wrong. You know, you are actually making headway, and you're learning, and you're teaching, and you're being mentors, and you're teaching other people that it's okay, and that this is how you can get ahead. This is how you can become self-sustaining and successful. So I commend all of you. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, you guys. So, you know, Thelma, in talking about the shame that's sort of attached with asking for help, you know, anybody who's been in human services for a long time, like I have, like, you know, over 30 something years, has had to encourage people to seek help, has offered help, sometimes to be rebuffed, but you know, we don't get to choose whether somebody accepts our help, right? So we all know that. But I'll tell you, from the chair that I sit in, you guys, there's plenty of people who won't apply or won't seek out help because they are shamed. But then there's also people who, when they see an opportunity possibly to you know, get financial assistance or get something tangible from a program, will pursue it with a lot of vigor, right? Whether or not they're eligible for this doesn't matter. They're going to pursue it, and they're going to demand it. And I think that, you know, once you you know, when your careers progress to where you're administering programs, is that you're going to see this happen as well, that there's sometimes and it doesn't get discussed a lot. I mean, Celine, you know this, it doesn't really get addressed a lot in human services field, is a sense of entitlement about assistance. And I've not been able to solve that puzzle in you know, close to 40 years of this work. How is it that as an administrator, you balance the actual need, right? The sincere, verifiable need with what often comes from some other people as a sense of entitlement. Like, you gotta give that shit to me because I deserve it. It might be a problem that's never solved in my lifetime. I hope it is, that we find that balance. But I'll give you a really good example, because we're going to roll out something pretty soon. So many of you have heard that the Department of Treasury has granted $40 million to Maui County for a rent and utility assistance program. Okay, we've been trying to work on a contract for several months now. I hope that we'll be finished next week and that we can roll the program out. But this program is really geared toward people who make 80% and below of area median income. And the program rules require us, okay? So it's not a, oh, I would like you to. It's a requirement that we prioritize people who make 50% and below of area median income to get assistance first. So they can get assistance with back rent, with utility bills, which include like electric, water, sewer, rubbish pickup from your house, gas, not car gas, but house gas, and basic internet. So one of the things that we're doing is we're trying to make people understand that this is not a first come, first serve program, right? So Joyce can call me and go, hey, I turned my application in and I was already on the first day, and my neighbor never turned them in until a week, and I just found out she got help. What does that tell you? Well, it tells you that your neighbor probably makes less money than you. And she was prioritized because she makes less money than you, right? So that is what we're required to do, is prioritize. So like Thelma works for Catholic Charities, and they're our vendor in this program. So we both got to put some headphones on, because we know we're going to get smashed when this rolls out, because the need is very high. People need help. So according to Maui Electric, let me give you just a data point to reflect on. According to Maui Electric, of all their customers in Maui County, they have $6 million in arrearages. That means in aggregate, their customers who haven't paid owe them $6 million. Can you imagine? $6 million just to Maui Electric. Okay, we're not counting the rent and all that other stuff. So there's definitely a need, but there's a requirement for prioritization where those who make the fewest amount of dollars, the lowest income, will get that assistance first. Okay, so the county will be rolling out all of the promotional material and all of that stuff once that ink on the contract is dry. But be on the lookout for that in case you have students who need help, or friends and neighbors or family who need that help, because you know, I want to spend that money, but I want to spend it right? And that's a responsibility of us as the government, is to administer that money properly so that we help the most people, and that when we get our books audited, we can cross all the T's and make sure all the I's were dotted properly, because there's no sense in giving away money if you're not accountable for it. That's the big deal here in this department. So you don't just hand out checks. We have to know what check is being used for. We have to verify all of that. So just be on the lookout for that. If you have friends and family who are impacted by not having paid rent, but you know, they cannot be evicted because there's an eviction moratorium right now, or they owe the electric company money or for water, that help is coming soon. But help them understand that it's not a first come, first serve program, that there is a prioritization that's attached to that. And I'm hoping that having this assistance will lift people out of that, because there's so much fear. I don't know if you guys see it in the community. There's fear, it's palpable. You know, I feel it when I go Foodland, or, you know, when I stop at the store to pick up something. I mean, I feel that there's a fear among people in our community. You know, I don't know how long I can hold this off, and which bill do I pay first? And it's really, it's stressful to live under those conditions for more than a year now. It's totally stressful. And I think all we have to do is sort of like watch CNN or MSNBC or news one day for a few hours and see about all these incidents that are happening primarily on the mainland. But you know, that's stress for communities, right? We're seeing mass shootings. Yeah, sure, it's one guy shooting 8 people, but it's about stress. It's about mental health. It's about, you know, people feeling like, got nothing else to do. And that's not a good place for us to be in, right? So Thelma started the conversation today by talking about the kindnesses that we can extend to each other. And she's right, you know, some of it breaks down to not just making somebody happy by giving them money, like Ben was saying, right? It's not just handing out the funds. It's right, really figuring out about how that money can be best used to really make a difference, right? And sometimes the difference is not about money. Sometimes the difference is being able to call and speak to the administrator of Catholic Charities on Maui and telling her how hard it is and having her listen, right? Not solving the problem for you, but having her listen, or having Celine take a call from one of her students who's struggling. Like, I'm in human services and I don't feel like I can even help myself. How am I going to do this? Or somebody like Sherry, who probably has compassion fatigue sometimes because she heard so many sad stories over the last year. And she understands what the suffering is. And she cannot like comfort every single person that comes to her. for help, right? So it's like extending those kindnesses in as much as we can, in whatever way we can, whether it's saying, you know, taking the time to turn around and say thank you to the guy who held the door open for you so that you could walk in, right? Or here in my building, it's before I step into the elevator, if somebody's already there, I ask permission. I said, do you feel comfortable if I come into the elevator with you? Because some people get kind of crazy about, you know, having somebody come in the elevator with them. So it's like trying to do those, have those social graces and elevate them up to the point where we're not pissing somebody off unintentionally. We're trying to be kind. We're trying to be thoughtful. The other morning I went to McDonald's in Wailuku, and the guy in front of me was taking like super long at the cashier, you know, the cashier window thing. And so I sat there and I thought, oh, this guy's taking really long, right? And I thought, don't get mad, just, you know, relax. You're not late. Relax. And then I get to the window and the young lady goes, oh, that guy paid for your coffee. Great, right? Made my day, right? So I just paid it forward one more time, paid for the meal for the lady behind me. And it was a good day. But it's not everything like that costs money, you guys, right? Not everything like that costs money. Some of it, a lot of it is just about kindness. Really. Totally about kindness. So I wish you much kindness in every way so that you can all share that with everybody who you, because it does make a difference. And I got free coffee on Wednesday at McDonald's, so I'm
Not gonna
grateful.
I wanted to add something to Laurie's conversation, and unfortunately, it's not about kindness, but I appreciate all that she shared. Sometimes in this work, and Sherry knows this too because she does intake and applications, that we feel like we're investigators. You know, we're asking questions. It does get personal because it involves money, but Laurie is right. We're using federal money, government money, state money, and in good conscience, we have to put that money to good use. So when people tell us things like, oh yeah, I have $15,000, but I need rental assistance, it's really difficult to justify that assistance, even in this time of COVID. So unfortunately, we try to be um, as respectful as possible when we're working with them. And we're always trying to give them resources. If we cannot assist them, there's always, other resources in the community that they can look to get assistance. But yeah, sometimes it just feels like, we're investigators. And the lady that I'm working with, the intake specialist, because we have funding much like the county is going to be giving us for COVID related 50% AMI and below. She is very respectful and she asks these hard questions and then she has a hard time because she's coming to me and she's saying, well, what do I say to them? She said, I want to help them, and that's the thing. We want to help people. We really, really want to help people. So we have to keep those things in the back of our mind and, support each other and pump each other up and work together so we can keep on doing this work that we need to do and step back when we're having a lot of stress and take care of ourselves because that's really important.
Well said. Well said. Everyone, thank you so much for being here, for caring. We know all the campus would be here because this is an important matter, but we heard that they had other business to take care of. Thank you that we can make this recording available to all of you who contributed, thank you so much. To our panel, our experts in the community.
Can I add something?
Sure.
I just wanted to say that for University of Hawaii as a whole, UHMC, Manoa, West Oahu, is that I didn't really know how to connect to my community. And I really got to do that when I was at UHMC. With Moaʻe and our teachers giving us the opportunity to volunteer at different things. I was able to connect with like American Lung Association, National Kidney Foundation, which I still do work with today. And my involvement in the community, UHMC has taught me that, how important it is to connect to my community. Not only that, but they also got me back in touch with my roots as a Native Hawaiian. Because prior to going to UHMC, I didn't practice any of the Hawaiian cultural things. But with Moaʻe, they gave me the opportunity to go into the lo'i and learn about that. They got me to learn different cultural things and the language, which wasn't taught to me growing up. So that is a valuable piece, I think, that many of the students will take away, from this campus, is the connection to your community and how important it is to give back what you've learned, and the connection to your native roots, which is very important in the work that you do, because it gives you an appreciation for the world around you. So thank you for that.
Well said, Sherry. It's one thing to take on information and knowledge, but the next step has to happen, which is the application, contribution towards the bigger, better of our community. And again, I would like to mahalo everyone for joining us, for spending this time with us. I feel it's the shared experiences from students who really charge me up, inspire me to continue to do this work. And the messages from our experts, like Laurie shared, really, it doesn't take much to be a contributor, and to recognize that we are all contributors. We all have capacity. We all have something to give, whether it be a smile, kind, thoughtful word, being kind. So with that, I just wanted to leave everybody with this olelo no eao that Mai Kumu Hokulani Holt always signs with. She says, I ola oi, I ola au, which talks about when you have life, I have life. So it's a kako thing. We're all in this together because we choose to be in this community together with capacity. So mahalo.
Mahalo, everyone. Appreciate your time. Take care.
Thank
Have a
you,
great
folks.
weekend.
Laurie, so nice to see you at Thelma.
Thank you.
you.
Bye.
Thanks, Leni.
Take care.
Thank you.